जी सर हो गया.
Okay. Okay. Our today session is related to the element creation, and with element creation, we will create input values because that is linked with the element, and then we will create, inshallah, we try our level best to do the session of element links as well, because as we have to do the setup for the absence management for our system, and absence management is also a very core subject in all organizations. It's a part of Oracle e-business suite in HR core, but in Oracle Fusion application, it is separate a module which need to be implemented.
Okay.
Okay, so basically all themes are same in Fusion and in EBS, but today we are going to start the setup to create the elements first, and then we will go further based on our document setup document which we already have seeing right now. So the first element which we are going to create will be a annual leave. So let me come to the application. Okay, as you see before, we are in our HRMS super user responsibility. We have different menus in our responsibility in this responsibility, and this is the seeded menu which we attach with our custom responsibility. Okay, so now uh, we on roughly we go for few uh, functions in people. We also discuss about the fast path. We also worked in work structure. Now we are going to open the menu total management.
Total
In
compensation.
total management main total compensation main menu, we have other more four menus, but today we are going, because we are going to create the element, and element is basically fall under the basic menu. So once we will click on the basic menu, we can see the element description, which is the element menu, element form, screen, link. This is element link basically. These are the two main topics of our course setup of absence, and you can see here absence types as well, accrual plan as well. So these are the functionality, but before going into the absence type, we have to create the elements, because once we are creating an absence types, with absence type we have to attach the element. So that's why we have to create the base first, and then we will go further. So let me click on the element screen. Now I have to log in it again because uh, it was not used for a while, because it's a session, sign on session is basically when you log in your application and you don't do any activity maximum by 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then automatically it become sign off.
Okay.
So that is the functionality. So once I log in again, I will click on the, I already clicked on the absence screen, sorry, element screen. So this is the elements main screen, and on this screen basically we are going to create our all elements related to absence, related to payroll, and all other kind of things. Okay, so let me create the absence setup with effect from, you can say, 1st March 2020, not 1st March 2020, it must be you can say 1st Jan 2021. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, we can create it, no issue. uh, okay, so now I just changed the date with effect from 1st Jan 2021. This is the first block where you can see we will write down the element which is annual leave.
Okay.
Okay, I write down the annual leave element name. The reporting name is also you can write the same because it is a column in the table. So you have to write down the reporting name same as you write down the element name. In the description we can write down CCL annual leave, uh, like that, or any other description you want to relate it to the annual leave. Now in the primary classification, we have different types of predefined classifications. Can you do one thing? Can you pause the video?
Yeah, yes, sir, sure.
Okay.
Recording एक मिनट हाँ हो गई start हो गई.
Let me change the date, effective date from 1st Jan 2021. Click OK. I want to create the element name with annual leave. Okay, I will enter the reporting name same, CCL annual leave. Now the primary classification, we just discussed about it. The primary classification, basically we have, as you see by the name of classification, we have absence, balance initialization, direct payment, earnings, employer charges, information, involuntary deductions, voluntary deductions, termination payments, and all these are basically, you can say, the categories of different elements. In in absence management, we will always use related to information classification. Why? Because annual leave, as if you see that when any employee is going to enter any leave, basically we are getting an information.
Yes.
What we are receiving means he's entering 2 days leaves or any 3 days leave. So these are basically an information for us. So we will use the classification as a information for annual leave or all the leaves which we will create it, because those we are basically capturing an information and passing that information to the system, and we will get the result based on that. So basically, annual leave, all the annual leaves classification will be information. I'm not going into detail in other classification right now because we don't want to disturb our absence setup system. Rest of the classifications will be discussed when we will go into the payroll side.
Okay.
Okay. Now you can see in the below section, we have 3 tabs which are enabled. Rest, these 2 tabs are not enabled because they are not used in this legislation. Okay. So the standard first tab, which is related, have a different types. Okay. Let me click on the help and I will give you exact informations about that, so you will get a better idea. So in this total defining an elements, let me click on defining an element. And once we click on defining an element, you can see here, first process was the classification name. enter a unique name, reporting name, select a primary classification. Okay, enter processing information for the elements. So here you can say select the processing type, select recurring. If an entry of this element applies in every period. Remember last time when we did, I meant in our previous session, I described you about the recurring and the non-recurring. Recurring are basically those elements which need to be processed every month. Here it is also mentioning that element applies in every period until the entry is ended. Okay, means once we will go and ended that element until unless that element will processed every month, in every month payroll. Non-recurring if an entry applies in one pay period only, means we will create these elements because we want to process them only and only once when we are going to uh, want once anybody apply for an leave. Okay, so basically we will select the non-recurring elements because these are not those kind of elements which need to be processed every month. Okay, so this is basically the type of under the standard processing tab. Then we have termination process, which is related to also the payroll elements as well and for annual leave. And as we discussed in our yesterday's session, I have mentioned you. Let me open the document and you will get more better idea. See, select a termination rule to determine how entries of elements are processed after termination of the employee. So this section is basically related when any termination is going to be processed. What will be the impact of the elements on that time? If we will choose actual termination, what are the consequences? Means, for example, actual termination, if we want recurring entries, now you will get step by step, you will get an idea what are the recurring and non-recurring. Now, first you get an idea what is recurring and non-recurring. Now, based on that two terminologies, types, you have to get an idea. For example, if there are, we have recurring elements which will come into the payroll section. Okay, so I don't want to means mess up the things with you because right now we are in absence setup. So anyhow, let me give you a brief overview about it. That entries to close down on the date the employee leaves. For example, an employee is going to be terminated on 25th of April. So all the allowances, recurring elements will be end dated on 25th. Okay, because the pay once the payroll will run, payroll will check terminated status, and payroll will also check that what are the end date of those termination of that employee. For example, employee leave end of the month 30th of April, then automatically it will end, the system will end date the elements on 30th April, so he will get the whole month payroll. If for example, if it terminated on 25th, then it will be processed from 1 to 25. It will not miss all those basic housing, transportation, other different recurring elements will be end dated when we will choose this option for specific recurring elements. And what is the final close? Final close, if we want the entry to stay open, means the person, though these final close element are those elements in which most of the time, for example, the final settlement need to be settled for an employee. Means final settlement means annual leave, payments need to be paid, sometimes final end of service benefit need to be paid. So it will take some time for the, you can say, the payroll managers or for the team of HR to process, to finalize those things. So those elements specific for those final settlement elements need to be checked as a final close. Means we, once we will create those elements, what will happen, we will check this final close, and based on that, when the employee is going to terminate it, then those elements will be closed, open till the date we want to. For example, we process the salary of that employee in that month, but we want to pay the final settlement, we want to pay the gratuity amount. You get my point? We want to pay the annual leave encashment amount. So these kind of things need some process, because these are the extra activity of the from the monthly payroll. So we want to process them in a timely manner. Means we cannot process, maybe we, there is no doubt we can process, but if we have a huge means count of employees, okay, and we want, for example, we have 50 employees left that organization, and we have more than 10,000 employees in that organization. So in that month, 50 or 100 employee final settlement need to process everything. So based on that, those elements always be checked as a final close. So the last tender process is basically when we are running the payroll. Here we can see for all recurring and non-recurring elements, if we want to, we want their entries to close down on the last tender process date, on the date the assignment ends, the final process date. If this is earlier, the last tender process date default to the last day of the period. You get my point? It's automatically be processed till last day of the month every time. So that's why most of the time all the non-recurring elements are checked as a last tender process. Okay. There are other multiple options are there. Means these are the multiple entries allowed. Means, for example, if we will check this, what will happen in a month, maybe an employee goes for 2 times annual leave. He maybe can apply for two times, na? Because for example, he applies from one date, from 3 April to 2021 to 3 April, only for one day. So once that is going to be approved, the element will create in the elements screen for that specific employee with that date. And again, he applied for an annual leave on 20th April, okay, in the same month. So if we will not check this multiple entries allowed, then system will give an error and it will not create the second entry, element entry. Okay. So that's why this option is, by name you can understand, multiple entries allowed. So we are allowing the person who can apply for a multiple annual leaves in a month.
Yes.
Okay. So the 2 entry will create. So once we will complete the setup and we will create the leaves, on that time you will get much better picture on that.
Yes, sir.
Process and run. Yeah, please.
It means employee apply the leaves with some interval. Multiple entries allowed means if we check this option, employee can apply the leaves with some intervals. After few days, he apply leaves, 2 or 3 leaves apply, and after that he will join. After those leave, he will again join the office, and 2-3 days interval he will again apply for the leaves.
Yes, it is allowing in a month. In a month, you can allow the 2 annual leaves or 3 annual leaves. For one days, he can go for, he applied for annual leave. Na? So he applied 3 times and in a different days of a month. But that is in a period. So period is basically called, is Oracle payroll terminology, so called as a period. Period is 1 month. The 1 month period, he can, within that 1 month period, he can apply for multiple times. So if we will click on that, he can able to, means system will allow to create the elements. If we will not create, uncheck this, then system will give an error that the element is not created. This is basically related to the element creation setup. Keep it in mind, because we are in element. Annual leave he can apply many times. Leaves will approve, but what will happen? This, all the elements need to be attached with the employee individually. If it will not come there, payroll cannot understand what is the means different things happen with that employee in that month. System cannot, payroll will not understand that. Payroll will only understand the language of elements. So all the elements will be created and it will be attached, link. When we will go from here to another screen, in the link screen, then you will understand that now we are going to link that element with the employee. And that, once we will go into the employee report, then I will show you, see, now it is a link with that employee. So that is the whole means cycle of this payroll and elements setup. Okay, so process and run is basically it is, these both are by default check, you, as you saw, we didn't check them by ourselves. So basically process and run is that this element will process in a month in the payroll. Okay, so that's why it's check. Once each period, means I want to process this element only one time in the period. Period again means in a payroll. So I want to process this checkbox is related to different kind of elements which we will use in payroll side. Okay, so once that time will come, I will give you more better information about that. So indirect results are basically those elements, because what happens sometimes in the payroll, when we will process a payroll, we run the payroll and we want to process some means elements which are not direct elements. Those are indirect elements. So that is the kind of that element one we created. For example, in a simple way, for example is that once we run a retro setup. Okay, so retro elements basically are always be indirect results. Those are not coming directly in front with the employee. It's not attached with the employee. It will link with some element, because in retro process what happened, it once we run the retro pay process, it checks the previous month changes of any employee. Okay, for example, any promotion happens, any increments happens, on that time we see, once we run the retro process, then with the basic salary, for example, Ashtiaq Abbasi got promoted with effect from February 2021. Okay, and now we are running the payroll for the month of April. So what will happen? Now I want to pay Ashtiaq Abbasi the increment amount with effect from February.
Yeah.
You get my point?
Yes.
So on that, this is, I'm just giving you the overview of the retro process, because these are related to that. So now again, payroll is also involved in this session as well. So this is the whole retro process. So once we will run the retro process, it will check that okay, basic salary of Mr. Ashtiaq Abbasi with effect from February increased 2,000 rupees with the basic. Okay, so now what we have to do, we will process 2,000 from the February and March. So 2 month at 2 month increment means 2,000 and 2,000 need to be come into April. We are going to pay him in April, and April salary is also be increased like as being 2,000 same. So the basic, he will get the increment for April in the payroll run, but he will get the previous month retro amount of 2,000 in the retro basic element, because we have basic element, which is the monthly recurring element, and we also have retro basic element. So retro basic element will be the indirect element on that time. Okay. So that is the whole thing of that. Third party payment element, it's again, you can go through, you can do one thing, you can come on the screen anytime in your later session. So you can come on the screen, click on help, and you will get the complete overview of all the elements and details. Okay, so in that time, if you will find any issue, I will be in very better position to give you detail about that. Okay, but almost what I have done, I have given you the basic core information about this whole section. Here's the thing, as you discuss, as we discussed the priority. So we, by default, the priority is 500. If I will set here 200, but 200, it will process this element before any other elements. For example, all these annual leave, sick leave elements are created, and we created with the priority of 200. And rest of the allowance elements which we want to create for the payroll, we set them as a 500. So which payroll element will process first? All the annual leaves, means all the information classification elements will process first, then 500 will process. Okay. So if we will want to process, make it 500 them and 200 to other allowance, so those elements will process first. So this is the priority which we can set based on our scenario.
Okay, sir.
Skip rule is basically, if we want, there are few types of skip rule elements. Means we want to basically, this is predefined, and this is basically, you can see is a formula. So once this, I will select this, what will happen? This I'm restricting, means I'm restricting to the element that it will process only for that specific period, and next, and it will not process second time in a payroll, in current payroll. So that is basically the logic of skip rule. So if we want to skip the element in the specific period, we can set the option over here. So let me save this element here based on the options which we already have. And after that, you will see the input values. See, in transaction complete, one record applied and save. So based on this element, I create one element, and now I'm creating going to enter the input values. So that is the next step which you can see in the input value screen.
Okay.
Let me scroll up. So here you can see, I will enter the name here by myself, and these are the units which you can see in the Excel file as well. Once I click on the tab icon button, you can see these are the units. So these are the different units which we can select based on our criteria. So days always need to be selected as a unit of a measure is day. Sequence will be one. So this will be user enterable uh, condition which we already set yes. Database item also need to be yes. So what I will do, I will enter, click on database item. There are more options, but these are uh, will be give you an idea when we will work in the payroll side. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And required section, required checkbox is basically, as you know, this field is yellow. So means if I will check this required, means that field will become mandatory for the user to enter a value must.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the only difference. So I don't want to make it, you can say, sorry, I don't want to make it required. Once I enter the first information, I will save this, and then I can able to enter the other information. So I click down, you can see the sequence number comes automatically. I will select hours. Now in my second input value, okay, I want to select hours in decimal format with two places. Okay, so I will select this because it is already there. So that's why it's come. You can click here and you can see the list of values with the two places.
Okay. Sir,
Okay.
this information already by default available in the system.
Yes, yes, yes. Unit of measure is already there, na? But
Okay.
the type input names we are giving by ourselves, na? Because we create the structure, na? We are the people who must knows these things, that okay, with the annual leave we are going to create this and that. Okay, na?
Okay.
Based on that we are creating it, and system already have that functionality. Now see, the point is future 1, future 2, future 3, future 4, as I described in our previous session. That see, what I'm doing, I'm creating a unit of measure two times. See, future 1 and future 2, which I already have created before. So now what I am doing, I am using the precaution. For example, in future, there's some change need to be required. Okay. So based on that, I must have that functionality that I can use it. Because once I create this input values, and later on the payroll process and everything has been initiated, then we cannot create any value. We can change the names of the existing, but it will also be affect the database items and balances. But based on that, whatever we are going to create, we must be make sure that it will be not affect any information. Okay. So in future, any things need to be required, we can do. That is the only purpose for that. Let me create till you can say
Future 2.
for future 2. What is happening? So let me save this record, and let me create future 2 again for you. Future 2 and hours in decimal 2 4. Let me save this and let me create remarks. maybe remarks required for you can say in that element. So I will just create the remarks as a character. I also use, I've also want to create date and money just for the precautions side. Maybe based on that, basically, whatever the values will come, we can extract the information, and based on that information, reports can be generated. Okay. So this is the input values structure. This is the element, and every element has to be linked with the input values. There is our balance feeds control, extra information. These are related to, balance feed is related to the payroll section. Once that will come, I will give you an idea. Recalculation and proration is also related to payroll. As you know, we discussed about proration as well. So almost you can 10 to 15% payroll is also we are discussing. So this is one element which we created. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me open the link screen for you, and I will show you that this is the link. So for example, I want to select my element name annual. You see,
Yes, sir.
it automatically comes here. So now if I will click standard, what will happen? This element will be linked automatically with the employee. But I don't want to make it standard because these are not those elements which is going to be processed as we discussed monthly or means on a monthly basis. So that's why I'm not going to link it with the standard checkbox. Recurring and non-recurring processing type is the same type. Once we create the element, on that time you saw that processing type there. So we already created this element based on non-recurring. That's why here it is coming non-recurring. So this is the eligibility criteria. Basically, as I mentioned last time, we have different type of criterias. Based on that, we can set that this element need to be attached with the department wise or job wise, grade wise, employee category wise, any group. So group is the same group, people group value, which we saw over there in, you can say, in our assignment the on that time. So this is the people group key flex field. Same, but we have to link with the payroll. So basically what happened on a, most of the time what happened, all the elements basically links with the payroll. Okay, so currently this is the payroll which is created already in that vision. So I'm not going to link with it. The jobs are will also not come which we created. Now these are those jobs. Basically now you have very much clear understanding that basically what are the uh, vision, what are the responsibilities and security profiles
Yes,
difference.
sir. Now
I hope
concept.
now you will, yeah.
Yes, the profile and
Yeah,
security concept is clear now.
yeah. So based on that, this is basically the whole picture. We attached that profile because you saw we were in that position. We were unable to see the element classification. But at least the point is at least you can get an idea that okay, so these are the things. Based on that, we can, what are the elements, basically how we are creating, how we will uh, add element input values. So here these are the elements basically which we created. So you can see these are all I just click down arrow key, and these are the elements which are already being created by the system itself, because these are the standards and these are the uh, date. Based on date you can see that it's generated, created, by the system. The social insurance, gratuity, all these terminologies basically used in, you can say, the UAE legislation. Okay, so based on that, see, this is the monthly salary. So salary is so it will go into the payroll side. I don't want to go into that, no? So this is basically the screen where we will create our annual leaves, our input values. We create the structure. Based on this structure, we will do one thing tomorrow. What we will do, we will now create the payroll name as well for our legislation. Okay, or we can do link with this payroll. It's not an issue because we can play with this payroll. So what we will do, close again, I came on this screen, I select my annual leave element and I select my payroll name. I will, once this come na, I will definitely will uh, guide you about this. So for example, I linked with this and I want to save it. I save it. These are the costing. Now you can see, now you will get more information, understanding about the costing key flex field. So this is, means, as I mentioned last time, all the basic salary, all the housing allowance, all the transportation allowance have some values need to be processed. Is every employee basic salary is different, na? So every basic salary for every department need to be charged, and that need to be charged to the specific department, and that department have some code, as you know, chart of account code we discussed. So every code related to finance, chart of account. So based on that, if we will want to cost that element, we have to set the costing over here.
Okay.
We will set the costing over segments, we will set in this section. But these are not related to the payment side. Annual leave payment is related to the costing side, but annual leave information element is not going to be costed. Okay, so we don't go to check there. It's not costed means it is not costable amount element. So this is the link of you can say the element, and based on that, what will happen, we can go into that. For example, one of the employee, let me open it. We will see all the employees by this names now, because these are the all Arabic names here, because it's UE legislation. So what will happen now, once I click on an other button and I click on absence, I want to just show you now what you can see here. You will click on this type. Okay, here type will not come because definitely we didn't created any type. We didn't created any absence type. So let me hold the session over here today, because it's almost 1:30 p.m. and we already started a little bit late. But tomorrow what we will do, I will guide you to create the absence type. Okay, this absence type, and I will guide you a little bit about we will create a accrual plan as well. Okay, we will also go for formulas as well, and based on that I will give you the complete whole cycle of annual leave as well. Okay, so based on that you will get a complete idea. So today we completed elements, input value, element link. Okay, so what you can do by yourself, if you want to do a practice, you can do that. You can create this leaf, this leaf, and this leaf. These three leaf types you try to create by yourself tomorrow. Okay, so based on that, we once you create by yourself, input values same, the same you can search from here. all the element input, all the elements have their same input values. There are few which we have changed. See, maternity same, paternity same, marriage same. Okay, so you have to just keep the same input values which we created for annual leaves, then link them with the payroll which we already linked, and rest we will do these rest of the work tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, ji. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.